depended on careful study and emulation of the ideas and technology that gave the Western colonial powers their advantages. Never had a great nation embarked on such a radical transformation as Japan between the 1850s and the 1910s. The main slogan of the Meiji period, 1868 to 1912, was Bunmei Kaika, or Civilization and Enlightenment, that is, Western civilization and enlightenment. Everything Western, from natural science to literary realism, was hungrily soaked up by Japanese intellectuals. European dress, Prussian constitutional law, British naval strategies, German philosophy, American cinema, French architecture, and much, much more were taken over and adapted. The transformation paid off handsomely. Japan remained uncolonized and quickly became a great power, one that managed in 1905 to defeat Russia in a thoroughly modern war. Indeed, Tolstoy described the Japanese victory as a triumph of Western materialism over Russia's Asiatic soul. But there were disadvantages. Japan's Industrial Revolution, which came not long after Germany's, had equally dislocating effects. Large numbers of impoverished country people moved into the cities, where conditions could be cruel. The army was a brutal refuge for rural young men, and their sisters sometimes had to be sold to big city brothels. But economic problems aside, there was another reason many Japanese intellectuals sought to undo the wholesale westernization of the late 19th century. It was as though Japan suffered from intellectual indigestion. Western civilization had been swallowed too fast, and this is partly why that group of literati gathered in Kyoto to discuss ways of reversing history, overcoming the West, and being modern while at the same time returning to an idealized spiritual past. None of this would be of more than historical interest if such ideals had lost their inspirational power, but they have not. The loathing of everything people associate with the Western world, exemplified by America, is still strong, though no longer primarily in Japan. It attracts radical Muslims to a politicized Islamic ideology in which the United States features as the devil incarnate. It is shared by extreme nationalists in China and other parts of the non-Western world, and strains of it also crop up in the thinking of radical anti-capitalists in the West itself. To call it either right or left-wing would be misleading. The desire to overcome Western modernity in 1930s Japan was as strong among some Marxist intellectuals as it was in right-wing chauvinist circles. The same tendency can be observed to this day. Of course, different people have different reasons for hating the West. We cannot simply lump leftist enemies of US imperialism together with Islamist radicals. Both groups might hate the global reach of American culture and corporate power, but their political goals cannot be usefully compared. Just so, romantic poets might yearn for a pastoral Arcadia and detest the modern commercial metropolis, but this does not mean they have anything else in common with religious radicals who seek to establish God's kingdom on earth. A distaste for some aspects of modern Western or American culture is shared by many, but this is only rarely translated into revolutionary violence. Symptoms become interesting only when they develop into a full-blown disease. Not liking Western pop culture, global capitalism, US foreign policy, big cities, or sexual license is not of great moment. The desire to declare a war on the West for such a reason is. The dehumanizing picture of the West painted by its enemies is what we have called Occidentalism. It is our intention in this book to examine this cluster of prejudices and trace their historical roots. That they cannot be explained simply as a peculiar Islamic problem is clear. Much has gone terribly wrong in the Muslim world, but Occidentalism cannot be reduced to a Middle Eastern sickness any more than it could to a specifically Japanese disease more than 50 years ago. Even to use such medical terminology is to fall into a noxious rhetorical habit of the Occidentalists themselves. It is indeed one of our contentions that Occidentalism, like capitalism, Marxism, and many other modern isms, was born in Europe before it was transferred to other parts of the world. The West was the source of the Enlightenment and its secular liberal offshoots, but also of its frequently poisonous antidotes. In a way, Occidentalism can be compared to those colourful textiles exported from France to Tahiti, where they were adopted as native dress, only to be depicted by Gauguin.